Murder, Love, and Destiny, an Eridan Ampora character study by Kaligvelaskeverivum. Read by Appley Apple. Part 1. Introduction. Warning for things from Homestuck, like discussions of child abuse, mental illness, murder, suicide, etc., etc. Because there's a huge wall of text after this point, I'm going to summarize what I hope to convince you of in bullet point format, and hope that you'll actually read the rest of the text before arguing with me about it. Number 1. Eridan is the least casteist high blood if you ignore all the slurs. Number 2. Those are his emotional support slurs. Number 3. Pale Erikar was not only canon, but set up to be endgame. Number 4. Eridan is incredibly plot relevant, thematically relevant, and was definitely originally intended to be brought back to life alongside the other dead trolls. Number 5. He's sad. The first thing we have to establish is what counts as canon for the purposes of this essay. I am only counting the original comic up to Game Over, after which there is a general consensus that Hussey kind of gave up on his original planned ending and slapped together something that most people hate. So I am immediately disqualifying PesterQuest, supplementary material, fanworks deemed canon, the epilogues, and Homestuck 2. Moreover, we are taking Hussey's commentary with a grain of salt for 2 reasons. The first reason is that I firmly believe and will be arguing that the original plan was to bring Eridan and the other dead trolls back. Therefore, Hussey, who has a track record of playing coy with future plot twists, can't speak too fondly of him, lest he give it away. The second reason for de-emphasizing Hussey's words is that post-retcon, Hussey isn't very well going to say that he had plans for a better ending and then didn't execute on them. To save face, he has to act as though his trashing of several prior plot threads, including but not limited to Eridan, was the plan all along. Therefore, this essay will not be putting too much emphasis on the Word of God, and will instead be relying on textual evidence from the comic itself, of which there is plenty. So without further ado, Part 2. Eridan is a consummate murderer. The reason I'm starting with this point is that, far from any other, this truth lies at the core of his being. Eridan is formally introduced to us with a murder, and he's haunted by an overpowering genocide complex. He outright describes to Rose at one point, specifically page 2805, "Killin' is all that I've ever done practically," and uses murder as an expletive, i.e. an alternia bound, sweet stinkin' murder. With a conservative estimate of 5 kills per week for 4 sweeps, Vriska looks very young when she has to start killing, and Eridan was likely a similar age when he began, as can be seen on page 3474. Both Eridan and Vriska easily have body counts above 2,000. The real number is probably even higher. At this point, many raise an objection that Eridan is only killing Luci, but I believe we need to count his kills as troll murders for 3 reasons. First, as stated on page 3474, a dead Lussus results in the orphaned troll being cold. Second, one has to assume he has had many cases of trolls trying to defend their Lusci or coming after him for vengeance. And third, and most importantly, Eridan himself is thinking about the orphaned trolls. Please compare Fefre Go Home, page 2437, that she keep her quiet for a while, at least until she dies, to Eridan Go Home, the next page, that she keep her happy for a while, and make a freshly orphaned troll somewhere very sad. So Eridan, to a much greater extent than even Fefre, is thinking about the orphaned trolls he's leaving behind, and considers his own actions to be murder. Now that we've established the facts regarding his murders, a rough body count, and the fact that, by his own admission, he barely had any hobbies outside of it, we can move on to the effect that it's had on him. It's not very good. Vriska's manipulations and murders had to be done for her own sake. If she ever stopped, she died. Therefore, much of Vriska's personality revolves around justifying her own actions so she doesn't have to reckon with her softer feelings, like guilt or kindness, which, on page 3467, she expresses would be viewed as scandalous by others of her caste. But if Eridan ever stops feeding Gilbagulb, everyone dies. The stakes he has riding on his shoulders are, at all times, the fate of all trolls, including his friends. Given Dual Scar's title was Orphaner, it is implied that killing Luci for Gilbagul has always been a Violet Blood's duty, and is seen as such by others, which is why nobody expresses gratitude for his hard work every single time, which brings us to our next point. Part 3. Eridan is crushed by anxiety. If Eridan stops killing Luci, everybody, especially his friends, but everyone else too, dies. If Eridan ever shows guilt or kindness, he'll be considered weak by the standards of High Bloods. He shares this with Vriska. Eridan is expected by aristocratic tradition to take on the mantle of his ancestor Dualscar and finish his work. Dualscar meant a comedically cringe fail end, so this is a massive undertaking. Before finding out that god tiering is an option, so for nearly his entire life, Eridan has had to live with the expectations that he will outlive all of his friends, the low-bloods from culling or dying on the battlefield, the high-bloods from old age, and Fefri from being killed by the Empress when she gets old enough. This is reflected in who he talks to the most, Fefri, who is the only one with a natural lifespan longer than his, Vriska, who's a high-blood, Kanaya, who's particularly guaranteed to survive into adulthood, and Karkat, whose Anon blood allows Eridan to give him the benefit of the doubt. Also, if he can't land his concupiscent quadrants, he'll die from that too, but that seems pretty secondary to the rest of his concerns. He can't even make friends with the other high bloods because Sea Dwellers are expected to hate and antagonize them. He had a free ticket into adulthood, but would almost certainly be expected to join the army and serve as a commander. That is to say, his fate of performing the role of a vicious, murderous Sea Dweller seems dreadfully inevitable to him. No wonder he can't stop having emotional breakdowns. No wonder his chat logs swing wildly from relentless self-aggrandizement to trauma dumping. No wonder he's obsessed with murder and death and genocide. Doc Scratch calls him a vengeful boy on the path of nihilism on page 3632, and it's not hard to see why. Eridan's entire life has been about living up to the role imposed on him by society, sacrificing his own time and sanity for everyone else, which he never got any appreciation for anyway, as he states on page 3176. And all he had to look forward to was more of the same, all his friends dropping dead one by one before him. For Eridan, there was never any hope. Scrub could have been a way out for him, but a combination of his own terrible choices spurred on by his anxieties, and his teammates' unwillingness to knock some sense into him, meant that he only wound up mired even deeper in his hopelessness. We all know how Eridan wouldn't stop killing the angels on his planet, provoking their aggression and turning it into a ball of death, how he was definitely not supposed to be doing this, and how his stubborn insistence on it led to his further ostracization from the rest of the group. The thing is, when we look at his angel murders from the point of view that Eridan's entire life has been about murdering things, or else something bad, TM, happens, it actually starts to become kinda sad. In Returnia Bound, Karkat. Between a trigger-happy prince with a god weapon blasting anything that twitched, and a million crazed angels he deliberately enraged, it wasn't what I'd call an ideal social hub. If you were lonely, why didn't you venture out more often? Eridan. Well, I woulda, but nobody else was volunteering to pick up the slack on angel-killing duties. Killing the angels is something he feels like he has to do, because his entire life has been about killing things. He's unable to break out of that mindset on his own, and his unpleasant personality has scared off anyone who might want to help. No one on the team tries to understand his thought process on a deeper level, not even Karkat, who just tells him it was an idiotic thing to do without addressing his underlying anxieties at all. Indeed, nobody understands. And this is really the root of why I think so many people get the wrong read on Eridan. Eridan is constantly contradicting himself, constantly denying his own feelings, constantly pushing an image that he doesn't actually believe in, and constantly insisting that he's fine with all the horrible shit in his life, and that he likes it. Even, after all, he can't admit to his guilt for his murders, or how much he doesn't want his friends to die, or how scared he is about the future. That'd be weakness! As stated on page 2467. CC. I can't even look after you anymore. CA. I didn't need anyone to look after me. I was totally fucking fine. My ambitions were noble. You see his contradictory nature with his stated love of history, which he only ever offhandedly mentions, because he's not actually that interested in history. It's just something that's expected of someone of his station, and you see it with his wavy accent, which he himself calls weird and drops it when he's trying to be emotionally sincere, as on page 2467. And you see it with his dumbass outfit, which is very clearly an imitation of Dualscar, with the only exception being the wizard-ass scarf, because wizards are his actual interest. I don't believe he likes fashion. I genuinely believe, and Eridan states so himself on page 2805, that he basically has no hobbies outside of murder. Even being proud to be a Sea Dweller is pretty much an outright lie. On page 2448, Fefri says, "You can't have the sort of affinity for our kind that you profess if you've only spent what? A few days underwater, maybe? In your whole life!" One that he tells because he's scared of the ocean. Because he knows what lives in the ocean. Because he's been feeding it his entire life. I see a lot of people who give Eridan an interest in marine life, and I'm telling you, that's just got no basis in canon. He's fucking terrified of the sea. And for that matter, land dweller genocide. Eridan doesn't want to do it. Both Fefri, 2448, and his internal narration, 2457, call him out for not actually wanting to do it. He outright states he wouldn't kill his friends, on page 2343, Well, I'm not gonna very well kill you, am I? That would just be fucking unconscionable. What kind of friend would I be? But he feels like he has to want it, has to believe in it, has to be talking about it constantly, because that's what's expected from him as a sea dweller. And a sea dweller is all that he will get to be. The mutation that puts a violet streak in his hair is damning. It's a fate that he feels like he can't escape, which brings us to part 4. Eridan is not actually Castus. Well, he is, but not like that. It's complicated. Secondary title. Those are his emotional support slurs, okay? In the exact same vein, haha, as secretly not wanting all the land dwellers dead, Eridan also genuinely doesn't feel like he's better than the low-blood castes. Vriska and Equius obviously put quite a bit of stock into being nobility, see page 2222, and both have acted superior to Karkat for it. Fefri actually revels in her high status, page 2850, and while she is genuinely well-meaning, she is not as interested in abolishing casteism as she is in changing the meaning of culling specifically. The hemocaste aristocracy in casteism still very much exists in a beforest under her rule. Gamzee might be the only high blood less Castus than Eridan, but then again, as soon as he snaps, he does say a lot of Castus stuff to Equius, although it's unclear how serious he is, see Triternia bound, and he also proceeds to get really into his weird high blood clown cult stuff. Meanwhile, Eridan, despite all his slurs and talk of genocide, does not actually try to pull rank on a low blood for being a lower caste than him, with a single exception. That exception is Solix, after he's already shown having an entirely caste-neutral opinion on Solix. Page 2467. CC. But Solix finally came through, and now I believe the full chain is complete. CA. Man, fuck that guy. He's a fucking drama machine. It's fucking pathetic. CC. Your stupid fishy face is the drama machine that does nothing but whine and glub. 38p. CA. Fuck, sorry. CC. Anyways, you shouldn't say that about him. He is a hero and he saved my life. CA. Yeah, sorry. My feelings seem pretty meaningless now. She had better things to worry about than my overwrought bullshit, like the dead guy who saved her, so forget it. Thanks anyway. It's only after he's mad at Solix for dating Fefri that he starts going in on Solix with Castus rhetoric, which is treated as unrequited flirting and not serious casteism. In Returnia Bound, Eridan, hey Finless, this doesn't concern those with mustard sludge slipping through their veins. It's a matter for royalty only, so keep your mouth closed or I'll slit you open over my next meal. Solix, we bro, not interested. Fefri, Eridan, please, I don't want to see any more dueling. Don't try to provoke him. It's not like I don't know what you're doing. You keep trying to spark a rivalry with him to get me to auspicize between you two and pull us out of our quadrant. It's the oldest and lamest trick in the book. It didn't work then, and it won't work now. They don't even think he's being castist. In fact, directly contradicting this earlier argument he has with Fefri, 2448, CC. This is the last time I will say anything about this. We are not better than anybody. Glub, frowny face, CA. Psh, Hemo Spectrum begs to differ. He outright states his real feelings here on page 2467. CA, I'm the biggest fucking idiot who ever lived. I can't believe I just opened up to you like a chump when I knew what was coming. I am one sad fucking brine sucker. Over-emotional sappy trash. You're right. I'm not better than anybody. I'm worse than anybody. Everybody. All the bodies. So the question of, is Eridan Castus, has an answer of, kind of, but also no. Eridan does espouse the rhetoric. He's constantly saying stuff that a Castus sea dweller should be saying. However, if you look at his actions and the way he actually treats people, he doesn't actually care about blood color. He'll hit on anyone, and he's rude as fuck to everybody. The real problem with him is that he's terrible to talk to, not that he's discriminatory. That's the thing about Eridan. Understanding him means looking past the way he presents himself, the lies he tells to himself, and even, at times, the way the narration presents him. His quote-unquote overblown emotional theatrics seem a lot less overblown when his problems are so real, deep-seated, and constantly causing him an unimaginable amount of anguish. The problem is, the main people he has to bounce those problems against are Fefri, Vriska, and Kanaya, three of the people most comfortable with their privileged positions, for whom Eridan's genuine emotional distress seems like needless melodrama. Fefri loves being a princess, Vriska enjoys her noble privileges, and Kanaya doesn't need to worry about culling. But for Eridan, his noble status, and the duties and expectations placed on him for it, have caused him nothing but pain. Of course, he would feel like nobody understands. Most of his closest friends genuinely don't, nor do they try to. Because that's what he is at his core. A traumatized fucking child who doesn't see any way out. Eridan is not a casteist genocidal sea dweller, he just wishes he was one and tries to be one, because if he actually was one, he wouldn't feel so awful and scared and sad all the time. He'd be normal, like his friends. The reason he constantly spouts anti-land dweller rhetoric and uses casteist language is to assuage this cognitive dissonance. That's why he has to come off so strong, present himself in such an aggrandized way, act like such a douchebag. They're his emotional support slurs. He doesn't actually believe what he says, which means he's a bad sea dweller, which means he's failing, which means something bad will happen. So he better get his ass in line and say something casteist. And it's all made worse because... Part 5. Eridan is dumb of ass and true of word. Oh my god, you guys, he's so fucking stupid that it hurts. Okay, that's not entirely fair. Eridan is clearly well-educated and book-smart. He has some of the most elegant prose out of the trolls, and he's prone to going off on insane rants with it. Actually, his language gets more flowery and showy when he's trying to impress a stranger, and gets progressively more laid-back, chill, and even kind of bro-y when he starts talking to people he doesn't feel like he needs to impress. Page 3175. CA. At this point, I find all her adorable black pixie dabblins to be prime kitty playtime shit. All of her fraudulent magics cannot come close to pose in threat to my mastery over the truest sciences. And with my empiricist's wand, I serve as the righteous hope that will incinerate delusions and the deluded alike. My holy fire is the whitest fury bled from the wrath-weary eyes of 50,000 non-fictional angels. And when they're finished weeping, they will bow before their prince. Gigi, what are you talking about? What I mean is this. His brain is so full of anxiety and cognitive dissonance and murder and death that he really struggles to care about other people, which has devastating effects on his social skills. The question may have popped up in your mind already. If casteism stuff isn't actually real, then what is Eridan actually like? The answer is overwhelmingly and discomfortingly sincere. This boy is gunning at the 100% emotional earnestness 100% of the time, and it's deeply uncomfortable for others to deal with. He'll swing wildly from insults and derogatory language to stating a desire to kill all land dwellers, to awe and amazement at his friend's prowess, to demanding that they do things for him, to trauma dumping and venting, without missing a beat, sometimes in the same conversation. Page 2343. CA. Can, it's hard. GA. What? CA. Being a kid and growing up. It's hard and nobody understands. He's also specifically terrible at parsing hostility. Functionally, he interprets all hostility aimed at him as either pitch/ashen flirting or ironic repartee, as seen in 3361, and similarly views his own hostile words as verbal jousting, pitch/ashen advances, or even just factual descriptions of the world around him, i.e. calling Nepeta a kitty cat shipper cave girl, as seen in Returnia Bound. Hostility and aggression are just kind of his baseline, default state of being, and he basically has no ability to differentiate between good and bad attention. He also had a pretty bad upbringing and possibly a shitty Lussus too. But suffice to say that our boy isn't getting any emotional support at home and as a result craves attention no matter what kind. This also means he's insanely gullible. For example, Rose calls him an idiot to his face and then blows up his computer, sarcastically calling it your first lesson in showmanship, as seen on page 2805. Eridan proceeds to literally consider it that, blowing up Jade's computer after he's done talking to her, as seen on page 3176. Furthermore, Kanaya sees him as a burden, as seen on page 2328, insults him to his face, page 2343, and pretty much just bullies him along with Rose for fun, page 3238. So she trains Eridan to become a powerful white wizard of hope to challenge her, as a joke. And yet, in spite of all that, Eridan still has nothing but gratitude and praise for Kanaya. Eridan, I've been meaning to thank you. Kanaya, for what? Eridan, for all that training you did. I wouldn't be the incredible holy wizard I am now without your help. Kanaya, but I didn't even really train you, I just made you a wand. Eridan, well, yeah, that's all I needed, I guess. I just needed for someone to show a little faith in me, so I'm saying thanks, I owe ya. Kanaya, okay then, you're welcome. I hope you use your magnificent powers of light and hope for goodness and purity, and let's not forget science. Eridan, don't worry, I'm all over that shit, you don't even know. Kanaya, I hope that didn't come off as too sarcastic. Eridan, what? Kanaya, the thing I just said. I didn't even realize how sarcastic I was being. It's starting to become a problem, I think. Please don't take too much offense. Eridan, damn Can, if that's your idea of offense being made, then I honestly gotta fucking worry for you. Tell you what, I'll give you some lessons in dealing with the dark umbrage to repay you for your tutelage in the white science. like he's in the middle of genuinely thanking her for believing in him. She makes fun of him to his face, and his response is to laugh it off and offer to teach her how to properly insult someone. It's honestly kind of sad. Not that he doesn't deserve the ridicule, but what we're seeing here is a traumatized, emotionally neglected boy trying to communicate the best that he can, that he loves and appreciates his friends, and receiving nothing but mockery in return. It's really not a surprise then, when he goes off the deep end, his entire life prior to the game has been shit. He got broken up with as soon as he entered the game by someone who didn't even care enough not to use fish puns while doing it. He's ostracized and avoided for the game's duration and then spends the rest of the time on the meteor being bullied. He feels deeply hopeless and anxious about their situation. He definitely doesn't know how else to exist, and his concerns are dismissed and mocked at every turn. When Fefri turns on him with intent to kill, that's his breaking point. I see a lot of people say that he goes grimdark or succumbs to external influence somehow, but I don't think that needs to be true, nor is it. He just is a deeply traumatized kid with almost no support network who's finally being pushed to the edge. Despite displaying every possible warning sign and making multiple cries for help, yes, ultimately, he's guilty for his own actions, but his killing spree, alongside Gamzee and Vriska's, represents a cohesive failure as a team to address very clear problems in their midst. So Fefri and Kanaya are sick of his ass, Solix hates him platonically, Equius doesn't like him, and Nepeta thinks of him as a creep. Vriska is his awkward ex, and Terezi agrees with him when he calls himself pathetic. He never interacts with Tavros, Aradia, or sober Gamzee. Is there anyone that treats him nicely? Okay, well, I swear this isn't shipping goggles. Part 6. Pale Erikar is canon, and I can prove it. So I'm going to start this with a disclaimer. You can ship what you want to ship, I don't mind, I don't care. Headcanons are valid, death of the author, etc. What you do in your free time is up to you. What I am attempting to argue in this section is that an Eridan/Karkat Moira allegiance was heavily foreshadowed, one of the most heavily foreshadowed things in the entire comic. And, assuming the original ending of Homestuck included all the dead trolls being brought back and redeemed, was going to be endgame. There's a torrential amount of evidence pointing to this, and very little of it is acknowledged even by Erikar shippers, which is a shame. At the very least, I'll be happy if I can convince some Karkat RPers to be extra nice to Eridans, because they are actually just some friends who care deeply about each other, canonically. The first thing to note is that Eridan and Karkat, at least prior to Scrub, talk all the time, to the point where Fefri feels the need to comment on it, page 2448. CC, you know, I'm not sure why we never talk about our romantic aspirations. We should more often. It's kind of exciting. CA, shrug. CC, probably because you fill your gossip quota with your nubby-horned bro, you leave nothing left to talk about with your dear sweet Moirail. We're supposed to help each other with that stuff too, remember? CA, maybe. Seems kind of odd though. Can you please stop having an emotional affair with Karkat? I'll think about it. The second thing to note is what the contents of those conversations entail. Sure, they gossip, but it goes deeper than that, because they would gossip about things that Karkat would never gossip about with anyone else, because Karkat usually respects his quote-unquote very good friends. For example, here Eridan mentions that Karkat has speculated on Kanaya's love life with him, on page 2343. CA, you don't want to be our auspicious because you don't want to get locked into that sort of relationship with her. I can respect that. GA, no, that's not it. CA, yeah, it is. Your real feelings run pretty awful ruddy, methinks. Everyone knows it. Especially that ass-blood Karkat. He and me have you so pegged about it, it's upright silly. And it's not even a one-off thing, because here Karkat is again mentioning Nepeta's crush on him. In Returnia Bound, Karkat, okay, but to be fair, I'm pretty sure she's still obsessed with me. It's a very unfortunate, very red, and very unrequited situation I've been trying to tiptoe around for a long time, okay? Her disinterest in your advance wasn't a reflection on you at all. Come on, we talked about this. It's a situation he's been trying to tiptoe around for a long time, and he tells Eridan, of all people, multiple times, and he also tells Eridan that the rejection wasn't his fault? What? So we've established that they talk frequently and about some pretty seriously sensitive topics, but do you know they also talk about their feelings? See, the thing is, Karkat has always been weirdly nice to Eridan. Here he is in a memo near the very beginning of their game, when Karkat is at his most rah-rah I'm the big bad leader, on page 2547. FCA, I got a problem with Fefri, and I'm kinda sitting here in a bad shape about it emotionally speaking. CCG, okay, well, I get that. I hear you, bro. But this is still not the right place for this, so I've got to ban you. CCG has banned FCA from responding to memo. CCG. But seriously, just get in touch with me in a private about it, okay, man? We'll get your shit straightened out. Compare that to Tavros asking for advice later down in the same memo. PAT. Since I don't know where you are now, but maybe help me? About a thing that has to do with a girl? Like a romance thing you might know about? CCG. You people are imbeciles. All of you. I'm not posting these memos to counsel you on your past and future dating problems. Why are you all such basket cases? I don't even know what to say anymore. PAT. Sorry. CCG. Should I ban you? What's even the point anymore? One of you stooges will be right on the last one's heels with another stop story. Just hurry up and tell me what your problem is, bro. He then proceeds to dispense no actual love advice. He just points out that Vriska can totally read this memo too, and then mocks them both when she shows up, thus making it clear that he is giving Eridan special treatment. You see it again in his discussion with Eridan in S. Kanaya Return to the Core, also in Returnia Bound, where Eridan invokes a pact between them, and Karkat immediately plays nice with him, despite himself being extremely high-strung and stressed out. Karkat, right, it's powered by science, I forgot, or hope, whatever the fuck that means. Eridan, I don't fucking need this from you. I take enough shit as it is from the rest of you dirt scrapers. I thought you and me had a kind of pact or whatever. Karkat, okay, fine, shut up, I apologize, I know it's tough being you. That's definitely pity, which Karkat states to be the basis of all relationships besides pitch as stated on 2296. But sure, okay, Karkat is sometimes nice to his friends. He is, after all, the friendship troll. So that's not necessarily out of the ordinary, but how about the fact it goes both ways? That's right. Eridan, 100% aggro, 100% all the time Ampora, is actually really considerate towards Karkat's feelings, and basically nobody else's. Upon hearing that Karkat is distressed that Solix has died, Eridan actively puts his own meltdown about his breakup with Vefri on pause. This takes place on page 2475. TC, because our good bro Solix just kicked the wicked motherfucking shit. CA, what the fuck do you mean by that? Are you saying he's dead? TC, yeah. CA, oh fuck, oh god fuck, now I feel like an asshole. He then goes on to chastise Gamzee for his shitty advice, demanding to be given the chance to comfort Karkat himself instead. TC, but I told him to be chill. Because there is a miracle coming, I can feel it. CA, that is the worst fucking advice. What an awful thing AU to say. Magic isn't real, stupid, stop believing in it. TC, I've got to believe at what my heart tells me, even if it's a fake thing, honk. CA, this is a lot of pointless fucking rubbish, and isn't no emotional help to him or me either for that matter. Put Car on. Before finally giving up when Gamzee insists he's too scared of Jack to help, drinking some Faygo and trying to ask past Karkat for help because past Karkat isn't sad yet about Solix dying. So, to recap, 1. Eridan's first instinct when in emotional duress is to go to Karkat. 2. Eridan feels like he knows Karkat well enough to know that Gamzee's advice would be useless and is proven right by the fact that Gamzee and Karkat's Moireligions fails for similar reasons. 3. Eridan is willing to shelve his own emotional meltdown for Karkat's sake. 4. Eridan demands to be the one to provide Karkat with emotional support, and this is, again, not a one-off thing. In the memo, Karkat opens right after Eridan and Gamzee have both turned murderous. After he spent several minutes making death threats towards Eridan and insulting him directly, he goes. On page 3361. CCG. I'm so upset. I'm just completely freaking out in every way possible. PCA. Yeah, I know what it's like. You want to talk about it? Eridan spends this entire memo under the belief that it's a completely run-of-the-mill conversation they're having. PCA. I mean, yeah, obviously, I knew you weren't serious. I guess appreciate the effort you're putting in cheering me up. I can always count on you for some good ironic repertory, Car. Nobody else really gets our sense of humor. CCG. Ugh, no. PCA. You said you tried to make it out to Loa soon. Well, how about it? Which implies that offering to listen to Karkat's feelings is also a completely regular thing for them. But something magical is also happening within this last memo, and to really explain it, I'll first have to be a little mean to Gamcar shippers. Sorry. Reader's note, I'm not sorry. So canonically, Gamcar doesn't work out for them, despite also being somewhat foreshadowed. In fact, they feature on Nepeta's shipping wall, which is actually, in my opinion, foreshadowing that it wouldn't work out. Nepeta's ships being wrong, and shipping being something she needs to learn to outgrow, is a whole essay on its own that I'm not getting into here. There's a picture of shipping wall. Andrew Hussey tweet. Yes, Nepeta was wrong, and she paid the ultimate price. But the thing is, the seeds for them not working out were also planted in the first and only real post-Moireligions interaction they have with each other, where Gamzee tries to calm Karkat down and fails. Page 4350. Gamzee. Nah, brother, I was just about to all say for you to try and get your settled down on, maybe. Karkat. Okay, yeah, I guess you're right. No, you're right. I should relax and breathe. I mean, that's what Moirails are for, right? This is how it works. I stop you from killing everyone, then you return the favor and calm me down, and I just breathe. Like this. Fuck. That sun is bright. Call me crazy, but it's kind of hard to relax with a stone's throw away from, oh, I guess the only biggest fucking star any mortal has ever laid eyes on. But I mean, can this be healthy? Aren't we gonna get burned or have our retinas scorched by looking at it? Oh god, I think I'm having a panic attack. But let's go back to that memo where Karkat is freaking out in every way possible. This is how he starts that memo, so upset about the deaths of his friends and terrified by Gamzee that he can barely string together a coherent thought. CCG. We are so screwed. Oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck. Guys, I'm terrified. I don't know what to do. I'm in a room full of bodies and I think I'm not supposed to turn my back on them. Oh my god, I just heard a honk. Fefri, I'm sorry. It was my fault. I didn't know what to do. PCC. Sorry for what? CCG. For, I can't do this. It's too much for me. I'm sorry. In fact, he's so distressed that he bans past Fefri and past Gamzee almost immediately after they come in. But then Eridan comes in and I mean, first of all, just compare how long it takes for him to ban Eridan. It shows an example with past Gamzee, it's like 10 lines. And with past Eridan, the text is so small, I can't read it. But more interesting are the contents of their conversation. Over the course of talking to Eridan, Karkat completely calms the fuck down. Like he's entirely forgotten that he's shitting his pants with fear. In fact, he even starts critiquing Eridan for his dumbassery. Page 3361. PCA. Even if I wasn't compelled to think that you were still being flippant and ironic with me, you can't exactly outright reject me, can you? CCG. Why not? PCA. 'Cause your future you. Doesn't count unless it's present you till then. It's all fair game. CCG. Is this real? Are you being ironic or something? I can't even tell anymore. The problem is, I can't put this sort of behavior past you at all, so I don't know. You're killing angels now, aren't you? PCA. No. CCG. You are killing fucking angels right now. In the past, with your shitty gun. I just know it. PCA. Well, there's just so damn many car, and they're not getting any less bloody pissed is the thing. CCG. This is why it would never work between us, man. It's extremely funny. Over the course of talking to Eridan, he goes from CCG, oh god, oh man, oh god, no, to CCG banned PCA from responding to memo. CCG. Anyway, that's it, I guess. Eridan isn't even trying to calm Karkat down. He still succeeds in doing so. This is because they are soulmates, and I mean that in the sense that the comic literally calls being Moirail's soulmates, which it doesn't do for other quadrants, as seen on page 2401. A reasonable human translation would be the concept of a soulmate, but in a more platonic sense, and with a more specific social purpose. That social purpose being an even-tempered troll comes down a more hot-tempered one, and vice versa. It also goes on to note, but some pairings, as the one above, will be strikingly obvious to all who know them. But what's really interesting is the next page. Picture of Fefri and Eridan with the diamond in between them. And yet others will seem to have been hatched for each other. Did you catch that? Let me zoom in. Zooms in on the picture with Eridan, and there's a little crab. Also, the blue and red cuttlefish to represent Solix. Fefri and Solix spend the whole game together, and even wind up talking about their feelings constantly in a pile. More piles in a second. In fact, in Eridan's first visual appearance, it shows a little crab. The crab has always been there for him. It's also important to talk about the bottle of Faygo that's been photoshopped to be candy red, Karkat's blood color. The path that it takes actually directly mirrors Karkat's relationship with Gamzee and Eridan. It's initially something that Gamzee has, but winds up being rejected out of his life, and washes up on Eridan's shore. In fact, page 2475. TC. Snatch an isoid, dog. Motherfucking chug that shit like you and the bottle reunited lovers. CA. Are you recommending a beverage to me or something? Is that what this is? TC. Yeah, man, slam a Faygo. CA. I don't want to have a fucking Faygo, you stupid fuck. Why would I keep that disgusting shit on hand? TC. Are you motherfucking sure about that? CA. Oh god, you're right, I do. I totally forgot about it. TC. You see, man? Motherfucking miracles. When Gamzee and Eridan discuss this exact bottle, Gamzee even likens it to reunited lovers. It's something that Eridan has had this whole time. After all, he was cheating on Fefri with the guy, but never realized. There's a few miscellaneous things that don't really mean anything on their own, but put next to all this other stuff is worth considering, so I'll list those now. First off, they both do the bonk. Second, page 2027. CG. We are not friends anymore because of the stuff said. TA. You literally ask me that every time. Are you joking? I can't tell anymore. CG. It's just a joke, moron. Obviously, I'm glad no one else is privy to our conversation. It's the quirk sharing typo. Quirk sharing typo. Third, Karkat muses to his future self about how he misses his friends, especially the assholes. 2 pages before staring at dead Eridan's ass, joking he's definitely looking at WV, but it's still significant that this thought is being associated with Eridan. Page 4688. CCG. I mean, I don't get me wrong, I miss all of my friends a lot, even the assholes. I miss them too, maybe especially them, in some perverse way. And I should be relieved that they all seem to be happy in some way, even if it's by floating nebulously through dream projections with their freaky blank eyes. And I guess I'm relieved about that, but at the same time, it left me unsettled. Fourth, he bemoans his failed relationship with Terezi, before future Karkat chastises past Karkat for his inability in mixed signals. Going back to the page on Moirelgens, an explicit function of a proper pale relationship is stabilizing a troll's other relationships. Page 2401. The two partners in a strong pale relationship will serve to balance and complement each other's emotional profiles, and thus allow their other relationships to be more successful. Of course, I don't need to tell you how messy and unstable Eridan's relationships have been. And finally, piles of stuff, TM, are associated with Moirails, and directly stated in comic to cause an outpouring of emotion. Triternia bound. Standing near this pile stirs powerful emotions. The closer you stand near piles of stuff, the more freely the feelings flow. It's a law of reality. So here's a 7-word tragedy for you. For sale, shitty wand pile, never used. In Alternia bound. Eridan, at least I got the upright basic decency to hide my shitty wand pile somewhere in the lab you won't find it. Don't bother even looking. Karkat, why do you assholes have piles of things? Just stop! Which he specifically tells Karkat about. So yeah, what I'm saying is, there's just, like, a weirdly large amount to read into there, that Karkat and Eridan are probably soulmates or whatever, and this is important because... Part 7. Eridan is plot relevance. Well, all the dead trolls are, but this is an essay about Eridan. So, now we are going to talk about themes. Yes, like we are in school feeding again. I'm going to keep it simple because the themes from Homestuck is a whole essay on its own, and this one about just the shitty fish boy is already way too long. I think it's fairly non-controversial that the main theme of Homestuck is children should mature, care about each other, and throw off the shackles of their old society, and they will be responsible for a new world one day. Up until Game Over / the retcon, this is so prevalent and well established that Spurb / Grub's coming-of-age themes will outright be commented upon by the characters. And the main villain is a child who deliberately stunted his own growth so he could go around kicking other people's toys forevermore. So, the thing is, with that being the themes of Homestuck, if all of the Alternian trolls don't survive to the ending is thematically unsatisfying, because the message suddenly gains an addendum of, well, some kids just need to die, which totally sucks. Like, sure, Eridan is a violent, crazed murderer, even at the best of times, but his permanent death within the canon kind of means that the comic is saying that people in his position don't deserve kindness or second chances. That position being a traumatized, emotionally neglected child who was being bullied by people he considered his friends. It's a pretty terrible message. It's even worse when you consider what other trolls don't make it to the end. Nepeta, the most outspoken troll against the Hemo spectrum, and Dave Petta does not count. Don't try to tell me that the final culmination of Nepeta's character arc is being combined with some guy she barely knows and a bird. Thefri, who genuinely wanted the best for others, even if she was kind of a privileged princess, Arati and Solix also stay behind in the bubbles, even though their lives have pretty much been endless parades of suffering and being used by other people. Even Equius doesn't deserve it. He was kind of a Castus freak, but not irredeemably so, and the fact that he became kinder to Karkat over the course of Scrub proved that he had the capacity to change. And Tavros, allergic to himself and being insulted by Vriska, is a terrible way to end his arc. It's also really clear that since half of his friends are dead, Karkat just doesn't really have anything to do. His title is the Knight of Blood, and blood is about bonds, romance, friendship. And yet, he ends the comic having never figured out what blood was about. With no confirmed filled quadrants, sorry Dave Cat likers, but within the comic itself, Dave Cat is never confirmed, and most of his bonds nothing more than ghosts in the bubbles. It's a terribly unsatisfying ending for the most narratively important troll. I think then, that even if you don't agree that Homestuck should have ended with full revivals and redemption arcs for all the trolls, the essay is going to proceed on like you do. So, sorry, I guess. The thing with Eridan specifically is that he's actually tied deeply with the plot and themes, and his return means more than just Karkat finally getting a date, although that's important too. Eridan is directly intertwined with a prophecy to kill Lord English. He's set up to mirror Caliborn and Calliope, and thematically, his redemption would be the most clear instance of the interrogating society part of the theme of Homestuck, because Eridan is kind of the society troll. And he was definitely supposed to be Roxy's wizard boyfriend. Just gonna get that last one out of the way real quick because it's a fast one. Roxy fucking loves wizards and is a hipster. This is stated on page 4464. Eridan is a wizard and is also a hipster. Roxy has a crush on a prince. Eridan is also a prince. Roxy wears a purple striped scarf. Eridan wears a blue striped scarf. Roxy uses rifles. Eridan uses rifles. Mom Lawn's introduction includes a passive-aggressive fridge battle that includes a cameo of Eridan's quirk. It says Shrev? It's 2 V's. Page 367. Using the colorful magnet letters, you recently left a succinct message, which may or may not have been directed towards anyone in particular, but you couldn't find the letter W, so you just stuck 2 V's together. Your mom then purchased a fresh pack of W's and left them there for your convenience. Yeah, so, not only did Eridan need to be brought back to date Karkat pale, but he also needed to be brought back to date Roxy flushed. Can you imagine how funny it would be? They would get together within 5 minutes of meeting for the first time, and Rose would lose her shit. Anyway, him being a parallel to Calliope and Caliborn is a quick one. Caliborn uses rifle kind / scepter kind, and Calliope uses pistol / wand kind. Eridan's two weapons are rifles and wands. Lord English is described as an evil wizard, and at one point is shown using Calliope's wand. Eridan is also an evil wizard who uses a wand. Look, I'm not saying that Eridan is necessarily directly related to these two, nor am I even necessarily saying that he and Roxy would have to date, but I am saying that he's got weird plot connections that make him bizarrely relevant to characters that only come into play well after his death. Almost like the comic was setting up that he would be coming back. His reaction to Cronus supports this. There's other strange Eridan plot important things too, like the fact that he's completely unimpressed by Fago, considering it to be just soda, stated on page 2547, and seems to be the only non-cultist who's okay with it. Or the fact he's actually been awake on Durst since before the game, but unable to hear the horror terrors, maybe foreshadowing some psychic resistance, which he casually reveals to Kanaya on page 2343, and which Terezi is aware of. Hence, he's included in the people she names are in on the existence of the game, stated on page 2061, or the fact that the genetic code for Alternia's first guardian was written within the pages of 4 Flark books, with the addition of a 5th code Gamzee wrote in Karkat's ATH book. But Eridan was the 5th Flark player in the team, implying that Doc Scratch / Lord English influencing caused him to usurp Eridan's part of the first Guardian code, giving Lord English his way into the Trolls universe. It's all kind of nothing, but it just paints a bigger picture of Eridan being weirdly relevant, especially when we get to the juicy stuff. Part 8. The Prophecy. Page 5308.
Aranya, the Bard of Hope may seem a little jaded these days, but he once had a deeply abiding faith in magic and dedicated himself to becoming a great wizard. He became convinced he was hatched to defeat an extraordinary evil magician, one he swore the angels foretold of. This magician, once somehow from afar, tried to strike him down at a young age, so he would never have to face him, but the evil spell was deflected, sealing the magician's spirit away in a series of unassuming vessels until he could find some other cunning way to enter our universe. But at some point he became disillusioned with magic. If there ever was any truth to his far-fetched vision, the legacy of defeating the evil magician would have to be passed on to his descendant. Or if his descendant proved to be as much of a failure as he did, then perhaps on to some other hero of hope.
Returnia bound.
Eridan, I slaughtered enough angels to know my limits and where I stand against the Lord of all angels they prophesized.
3176.
Gigi, I'm pretty sure he's from the future. CA, why? Gigi, because he said he's my grandson. CA, what the fuck is a grandson? Is it some kind of perverse human familial thing? Gigi, yes. CA, that gun I just gave you is something of a hatch right to the kid. Happy I could play a role in your dirty stinking lineage. Gigi, like an heirloom? I guess it could be. CA, I kinda think that's why I found the gun in the first place. Because fuck, I just found a better destiny than my old crappy one, which I never got any appreciation for anyway.
Jake is supposed to have been the one to defeat Lord English. No, Jake defeating pre-Lord English Caliborn right before he gets sealed into Cal doesn't count. He doesn't even get the final blow in the fight. Dirk does, but Eridan at one point had the destiny on his shoulders. Aranio Turbo healing Jake, and the resultant hope field summons a bunch of angels, which are heavily associated with Eridan. Yet another random connection that Eridan has with future plot events. Jake was another character alongside Karkat who was kind of reduced to a joke by the end, despite the fact he had literally, directly been past the destiny of defeating Lord English. It's not hard to see this as a consequence, at least in part of removing Eridan from the story. By cutting him out of the fabric of the ending, several plot threads, including this prophecy, are left dangling in irrelevance, and so Jake, like Karkat, now has nothing to do. Homestuck is generally a series where every prophecy does come true, which makes it kind of startling when several prophecies fail to. Fefri's to unite the two races, Jake's to defeat Lord English, and Karkat's to bring compassion, forgiveness, and equality among all bloodlines, in the Signless's place. That last one is particularly relevant to Part 9. The thematic importance of Erikar as soulmates. Eridan represents the worst aspects of Alternian society. He's a sea dweller at the top of the caste structure, with free reign to murder whoever he wants. soaked in the blood of thousands of innocent trolls. He espouses the casteist rhetoric that their society is built on, calling for the deaths of all land dwellers and the oppression of the lower castes. And while he should be benefiting from his position of privilege, it has done nothing but hurt him. Karkat, meanwhile, is a pariah, a mutant who would have been culled on sight, who spent his entire life living in hiding, and most of the game in fear that he would be ostracized or worse from the rest of his friends if they found out his blood color. He's also the second coming of Troll Jesus, and thus more despised by the Alternian ruling class than a mutant normally would be. For most of his life, he dreamed of nothing more than finding belonging within the society that had deemed him unfit. Their friendship is something that should not be. The high blood and the mutant, the Royal V and the Off Spectrum, the Empress's Sea Dweller and the second coming of the Signless. Eridan should see Karkat as a miscreant to call on sight. Karkat should be terrified of Eridan's very existence. But in reality, Eridan doesn't give a shit about blood color, and Karkat just wants to be accepted. Eridan just wants someone to care about him, and Karkat loves his friends. Aside from Fefri, Eridan is the only Highblood who never comments about Karkat's mutant blood, and they were best buddies even before Eridan knew. Eridan and Karkat getting together isn't just the two most undateable trolls on the team finally landing on a stable quadrant. These two, more so than any other pairing, represents the themes of Homestuck: children growing up, caring about each other, and throwing off the shackles of their old society. In the pre-retcon timeline, their team failed to do so. This led to Gamzee falling into his high-blood clown cult, Equius letting himself and Nepeta die by submitting to his place in the hemospectrum, Vriska killing Tavros because she couldn't allow herself to show weakness, and Eridan completing his caste's dream of genocide. Karkat spent the entire meteor trip and beyond beating himself up about it, since he considers it all to be his fault. But with the introduction of Jon's retcon powers, they have the chance to do, one by one, redeem themselves. I believe that's how the original ending would have gone. Terezi would ask Jon to bring Vriska back because she only feels comfortable fixing her own mistakes. Vriska would then have asked Jon to bring back Tavros, whom she regretted killing. Tavros would be there for Gamzee, rendering him an ally. Gamzee would ask Jon to bring back Equius and Nepeta. Equius would ask Jon to help him not make the same mistake with Aradia, and Aradia Bot would catch Jon by the wrist and demand he bring her back in time to before she died, allowing her to circumvent her own death and Sollex's guilt. Sollex would ask Jon to keep him from provoking Eridan, saving Fefri, and Fefri would be pretty okay with the way things were. But Karkat would then pull Jon aside and drop an entire book of mistakes he made on Jon's lap, and this would result in a finalized timeline where his friends are alive and god-tiered, because all the trolls should have survived. Vriska should have survived because people should be allowed to have second chances. Tavros should have survived because caring about each other and being willing to show kindness and mercy are good things. Gamzee should have survived because people mired in religious fundamentalism and cults deserve to be offered a helping hand. Equius should have survived because people should be allowed to grow and change their beliefs. Nepeta should have survived because she was the anti-casteism troll. Casteism is bad, folks. Not only that, but I'm convinced she was originally going to give the ultimate self-exposition, and Dave's Sprite Squared had to be contrived in the canon ending in order to shortcut Nepeta's character development, ruining it in the process. Aradia should have been allowed to stay with the rest of the team and live a life free of the control of evil uncles and shitty ancestors. Solix should have been allowed to stay with the rest of the team because we all deserve to heal and be happy. Fefri should have survived so she could be in a kismesitude with Nepeta and realize that casteism itself is bad, not just the definition of culling, and then used her Witch of Life powers to even out the lifespans between the next generation of trolls, which needs to happen or else casteism will just happen again as long-lived Highbloods inevitably amass power. Also, it would complete the prophecy that Gulbagulb gave her that she was intended to unite the two races. Dream bubbles don't count, because by that metric, Solix did more than she did by establishing a connection between trolls and humans. And Eridan should have survived because the harm society has done to us can be undone. We don't have to submit to the roles it imposes, to the laws it wrote, to the abuse it inflicted. We can be free. I've seen a lot of people who believe such and such character did such awful things that they don't deserve a happy ending. Oftentimes, it's Eridan, but nearly all of the dead trolls have gotten this treatment. Let me just ask all of you who have gotten this far and still hold that opinion one thing. Do you think that's what Troll Jesus would have wanted? This is why Pale Erikar is so important. For it to happen, Eridan has to make a choice between upholding the beliefs of a shitty society or pursuing a happier, kinder future. One where he outright rejects the caste system. For it to happen, Karkat has to shake all his insecurities about not being good enough by Alternian standards and take on the duty of creating something better than what he came from. If Pale Erikar happens, it means Eridan and Karkat choose love, not fear. Compassion, forgiveness, and equality. This choice, this pairing, is the ultimate representation of giving Alternian society one big middle finger, saying we don't need you anymore, fuck off. Saying we reject you at your core, we will choose something better. Saying we will create a new world, and it will be kinder than the one we came from. Pale Arikar means love wins. Thank you for listening.
I don't care about what happens to you. But if you're not around, who's going to take care of that mother of yours? Have you thought about that?
Mechazawa worries about you more than anybody else.
Faggots.